So I'm so thankful that Karen last week spoke about birth order. I'm the youngest. I think I mentioned that up at announcements last week. I'm the youngest, and out of all the birth orders, the youngest is usually the least organized, the least orderly, the least structured, and then add on top of that I'm artsy and creative. And well, yeah, organization and I kind of have a love-hate relationship. It was not something that I'm naturally gifted at, but when I was asked to speak on this topic, I kind of chuckled, and my family and my friends that know me best and have seen me grow up and go through all these things, they were actually very encouraging. They said, you know what? We thought that you were hopeless, but you've actually made some progress. So if anybody can do it, if you could do it, then any of these ladies you're talking to could do it. So you guys should be super hopeful by the end of this that if she can pull it together, you guys can pull it together too. I grew up in a home that was spotless. It was flawless and perfect in its organization, its cleanliness. Everything was tidy. My mom was just naturally organized. And my older sister, her room looked exactly the same. Her room probably looked better than my mom's house. She was naturally organized. And I, clearly, the artsy youngest one, was not. And I felt like a failure, and I felt discouraged, and I did not understand why I couldn't be perfect in this regard like they were. And so my mom had to work with me. She expected me to have a neat and tidy room, and I did. My mom taught me how to clean and dust my room. My mom taught me how to clean the bathroom. I could do my laundry. I could vacuum the floor. I could do those things, but I had a really hard time organizing stuff and keeping it clean. So you could walk into my room, and yes, it looks nice and neat, but if you opened a drawer, it most likely would not close again. Or if you opened my closet, you better brace for impact because things would fall on you. Or if you looked under my dresser, you're gonna find like homework and books and just stuff crammed under there that they don't belong under a dresser. So I ended up getting super discouraged, super stressed because everything was chaotic. And then I got married and I brought that into my marriage. Because now I'm not just managing a room, I'm managing a whole home. And then add kids on that, and you could expect that it's probably amplified. It's not gonna solve the problem when you add kids into something, right? It's gonna make it worse. And so I became this stressed out, irritable, cranky woman, right? I was no fun to be around. If you were to open your Bible to pretty much any page and start reading, it's not gonna take very long for you to come across this picture of God being a holy creator. Now, holy is not a word that we hear very often, right? You're not gonna go to Target or Joann's or the Spectrum and hear it used. If you do hear it used, it's probably not accurately or appropriately for that matter. But holy is a word that defines God, and holy is a word that I guarantee you has made an impact on every single one of your lives, whether you're aware of it or not. The word holy is really a two-part word. It literally means to cut or to separate. So when you hear holy talked about that way, it means that something is set aside for a special purpose. It means that it's above and beyond, or it means that it is in a class of its own. So when we say God is holy, or we say something is holy or used in a holy way, it means that it's set apart and it's special, and we could see that. But a lot of the times when the Bible uses this word holy, it is implying this sense of moral purity or moral perfection. So when we say that God is holy, we're saying that God is good and right and just in all of his ways, right? And that's a big statement right there. God is holy means that he is perfectly perfect in all of his actions, his attitudes, and his behavior. And if you continue reading in your Bible, you're going to see that God has an expectation for us. Yikes. I know just this morning that I have done things that have made me not holy, right? I have not been perfectly perfect in my actions, attitudes, and behaviors just this morning, probably even just since I've gotten up on stage. I'm sure there are things that are flawed in my actions, attitudes, and behaviors. But as I started reflecting on God's holiness, you might think that this would discourage me more, but it actually encouraged me. It actually took a burden off because I started to realize a couple things about the way I was thinking and this reality of God being holy. I started realizing that my standard of perfection, right? I'm like down here with my housekeeping. I'm like at where my shoes are. My mom and my sister, I had put them on this pedestal. I had thought, wow, they are perfect in this regard. They have perfect homes. My standard of what was perfect failed in comparison to God. God was like at the moon. So if I'm where my shoes are, my mom and my sister are here, God's standard of perfect was already at the moon. And I looked at my measuring stick that I had been using and I thought, well, this is kind of pathetic, right? My standard of perfect was nothing compared to God's holiness. God also, I realized on reflecting on holiness, I realized God is not just concerned about the outward appearance of things. He's more concerned probably about what's going on inside my heart, right? Not necessarily what's going on inside my messy closets, but what's going on inside my heart was chaotic and grumpy and stressed and irritable, and that did not reflect God's holiness. So, whether you follow God or not, this is how you're impacted by holy. Every single one of us, even the most messiest among us, we strive for a more orderly home, don't we? If I were to ask you to close your eyes and picture your home at its most ideal, you're not going to picture your home and think, oh, I really hope that I walk in and there's an extra spot on the carpet. You're not. Or you're not going to think, oh, I really hope I turn the corner and, oh, there's an extra load of laundry that I forgot about. You want your home in a more perfect state than what it currently is, not worse, right? So the fact that we strive for perfection, the fact that we strive for something better, even if it's in our housework, even if it's in our appearance, if it's in our finances, in any of these ways, if we're striving for something better, that's evidence that God created you in his image. God created us to reflect his holiness, his perfection, and that's why we strive towards improving our lives. So, for me, I had a turning point when a wise mentor once saw that I had this perfectionism in me, and he said, you know what? You guys have all heard the saying, practice makes perfect. He goes, but Lindsay, it doesn't. Practice makes progress. Practice makes progress. That was a huge turning point for me. It released this burden of me having to be perfect in my housekeeping or me having to be perfect in my parenting. And I realized that's what had failed in the past. All these times where I had tried to improve my home and to get better at having a cleaner home and a more organized home, I would make progress. I would do a little bit of things, but because I wasn't at perfection, I gave up. I gave up because I thought I was a failure. But as soon as I started thinking about, I need to make progress, then I started being able to celebrate these little teeny tiny steps. And yes, I'm still this huge distance away from my goal, but I'm celebrating these little teeny tiny steps, and they started to stick and build on each other. And I really hope that you guys can focus on progress, not perfection. So when I was preparing this morning, I thought of my goal for this morning is I want to nudge you guys in the direction of progress, right? You're not going to be at the end goal yet, but I want to nudge you in that direction. And I broke our morning up into two parts. First, we're going to think through the thought process of productivity, and then we're going to go through some actual practical applications of productivity. But I'm going to start our morning with a definition, and I took this definition from a couple different books that I read, and I took the parts I liked because I'm the one that's speaking on it, and I smushed them together. So this is what you guys have for our definition that we're going to work off of, and it is written on the back of your sheet, so you don't need to scramble to write it down. You're welcome. At least I think it's written on the back of your sheet. I should probably check that. Is it there? It's there. Perfect. I said that yesterday, and they probably were like, it's not even there. Okay. Productivity is being intentional to make progress, to develop the set of tools used to skillfully manage what I've been given. And you guys have our steps of thinking through this thought process, and there are 4 steps, and they're based on these phrases: being intentional, making progress, developing tools, and skillfully managing. So for step number 1, I want you to write it this way: define your destination. It is important that we set a realistic goal of what we want our lives to be revolving around. What is the purpose of your life? And I know that's kind of big and lofty for 10 a.m. on a Friday morning. So maybe for this morning, you just write down, what is your goal or your purpose for your home? What is the intentions that you have for your home? Because it's important that we have something that we're aiming for, right? If we don't have something that we can aim for that's realistic, we're not going to get there. We're just going to kind of drift around aimlessly. So being intentional to define your purpose or your destination could be, maybe you want a clean home. Maybe you're tired of all your kids getting sick, so maybe your goal is going to be that you're going to have a home that is super clean and it's going to be like scoured every single day, right? And it will be germ-free. Maybe the purpose of your home is that you want it cozy and inviting so you could be hospitable to your neighbors and welcome people in. Or maybe you want the destination that you set for your home. Maybe it's going to be a home that's financially stable, so you're not stressed out about the debt that you have. Or maybe your home is just that you want a peaceful place for your family to come home to where they feel like they could be themselves. I don't know. You might be different than the person sitting next to you, and that's okay. But intentionally define your destination. So once you've intentionally defined your destination, right, the next part of our definition says to make progress, right? So that's the big thing. We all want to take those little baby steps that are going to build on each other to get us to that destination. And an important step in doing that is going to be number 2, which is set your priorities. If you're setting priorities into place, that means that you're going to take your destination and it's going to determine what big things in your life, the tasks, the responsibilities, what things revolve around getting you to that destination, what's going to make the most progress getting you to that destination. And you're going to assign those things that will make the most progress. You're going to assign those a higher ranking or a higher pecking order than some of the little things, right? So if your goal was to have a financially stable home, maybe you're going to set a priority on reading a book about budgeting versus going and getting your nails done, right? Because one is going to get you closer to your goal and one is going to get you further from your goal. So it's important that you know what your destination is so you can set these appropriate priorities. Now, sometimes we have little things, right? Maybe these are both things that have equal priority. There's not one that's more important than the other. So if you have 15 minutes in your day, are you going to spend it mealtime prepping? Are you going to spend it ironing shirts? Are you going to spend it going on social media? Are you going to spend it taking a nap? Well, a good thing to do, a good tool to do, is ask your husband. Ask your husband tonight when you go home, say, if I have 15 minutes in my day, what is one thing you want me to get done around the house? And he can help start setting priorities in your home as well. And I know you laugh because I was afraid that my husband was going to say like, oh, the baseboards are a mess. They need to be cleaned every day. Or you need to be scrubbing toilets. Or I was envisioning like, I'm just going to be Cinderella slaving away for hours and hours every day, getting done the one thing that my husband says is important to him. Do you know what he said? He said, you know the stack of papers the girls bring home from public school? He's like, you just kind of set them aside and they just kind of build up. And it was building up in a spot that was like kind of tucked away, so it wasn't like you saw it when you first walked in. He said, if you could just go through those like maybe every week, that will be helpful. And I thought, if I just spend 2 minutes a day going through those, I'm going to earn like huge brownie points in my husband's book. So if I have 15 minutes during the day, I'm not going to go do laundry. I'm not going to go do meal prep. I'm going to go tackle those papers. Super easy, and it just cleared up a huge thing, this huge question mark in my head, right? Another thing you guys have, Jen mentioned this, and I had already planned to bring this up. Jen mentioned this on the first day. An hourly grid is a great way to examine if the things you're setting as priorities, if they're actually going to get you to your destination. This is very convicting, ladies, but if you're writing down what you're doing hour by hour, you're going to see. When I first did this, I looked at it and I thought, oh my goodness, I set a destination, I set a goal for my life, and nothing reflects that goal for my life. So I knew I had to make some big changes, and then I started seeing some progress to get to that destination. You guys will also find time wasters. So setting priorities, it helps us to be able to measure the progress. It helps us to be able to make sure that the right things get the right amount of attention and resources and time. And it also might also eliminate some time wasters that we have in our schedule and free up time. Step number 3 focuses on developing the set of tools. Well, this is the fun part. This is where we get creative. This is the magic formula. So I put it this way. Step number 3 is to get your game plan. This is where we get the ideas. This is where we go to the websites and the blogs and the books and the experts. And guess what? You're sitting at a table full of experts. So when you guys have your discussion, these are going to be great resources for you guys to get some tools and some ideas of what works well and what doesn't work well, or what worked for this person and what didn't work for this person. Sitting next to these ladies who are in the same stage of life as you is a great resource that you guys have at your fingertips. And we will talk more about this step later, so I'm going to move on to step number 4. If you have steps 1, 2, and 3 in place, right, you've defined your destination, you've set those priorities, and now you have a game plan, it should be smooth sailing, and life should just go like easy breezy, right? But it doesn't. We all know that there are hiccups and that there are detours. That's why we need to skillfully manage. My husband is a manager over several people at his work, and he's constantly having to train them. He's constantly having to correct them. He's constantly promoting them and moving them into new roles and training them again in the new roles. That's kind of how we are with our tools that we're using in step number 3. So step number 4, I've written it this way, and it might not make sense yet, but when we're skillfully managing, step number 4, we need to use a pencil, not a pen. And what I mean by that is we need to be flexible, ladies. We need to be flexible and not tied down to the tools that we have in our toolbox. Because life changes, life grows, our tools are going to get worn out, or maybe they need to be sharpened, or maybe they need to be thrown away altogether, or maybe we need to add new tools to our toolbox. What worked yesterday might not work a month from now. What works today might not work in 10 years, right? Our kids, our family, even ourselves, we're gonna grow and change. Also, life is unexpected, right? How many times do you have plans to go somewhere and your child has a blowout diaper? Or you can't find shoes? We always had problems, though, with that. We always had problems with, I found one shoe, where's the other? Like, I don't know. So, and that always happened at Disneyland. It was always one shoe is missing at Disneyland. Great. So, broken or worn out tools need to be thrown away. Broken tools need to be thrown away. We need to be adjusting and adapting, and we need to be evaluating what's working and what's not. I know I had a memorable day when all of the plans that I set for the day was literally hijacked by my 2-year-old. She's now 12. She's helping in some of your kids' classes today. She's awesome now. But when she was 2, she was my feisty, strong-willed child. And I had plans set in place that I was going to be productive, I was going to run errands, I was going to have a smooth day, I was going to be like the Mary Poppins mom. And that was just not the case, right? I had swim class morning, which is its own crazy blend of craziness there. It's its own thing. She hated swim class, so there was always fights. I had the rebellion at swim class. I had broken glass that I was picking up out of the carpet when she pulled over a floor lamp because she was throwing a tantrum that she didn't want to sleep. And then, as I'm cleaning up the glass, they were supposed to be going and playing nicely. I walk out, and now I have wall art that I have to clean up, crayon that had popped up on all the walls in the loft and the playroom. It was Berkeley's day of bad choices. She was a mess, and I was thankful that even though I had plans that day, I was thankful that I held on to them loosely, because that was something that old Lindsay would have been unraveled by, right? Talk about the attitude of holiness, that would have been just gone. I would have blown it. But now that I'm holding these tools loosely and I realize things like this are gonna happen, it was something that I was able to handle well, and now we actually look back at it, right? That's why it's titled Berkeley's Day of Bad Choices. And my kids are always like, will you tell the story again, Mom? It's so funny. She was such a stinker. She was such a stinker. But it's helpful if we have this pencil mindset that we're keeping our plans in pencil, not in pen. It's gonna make things run a lot more smooth. Well, if we sat here and we thought about productivity all day long, guess what? You're gonna be less productive today than you were yesterday. Because thinking about productivity is gonna do absolutely nothing for you. You actually have to do it, and you actually have to start moving your body and doing the things that we're talking about. So now we're gonna move on to the other side of your paper and talk about some practical tools. So the practical tools, these are the things that you're gonna do on a daily basis. This is not an exhaustive list, this is only 10 things, and I grabbed these 10 things from what I saw repeat the most on blogs and from experts and from the ladies in my life who are crazy organized and they have it all together. So these are not new. They're not like, oh my goodness, that's the most amazing thing and eye-opening thing ever. But they're helpful. So the first one is very simple, and we've already talked about it. It's progress, not perfection. If we have the mindset that we're gonna make these little steps and we haven't arrived at our destination yet, then it's gonna go much better, and we're gonna be able to be gracious with ourselves that we're not there yet, and that's okay, but we will aim for progress, not for perfection. The second tool we also talked about, and that is ask your husband. Ask hubby, what is it that you would like to get done over the next week? Or what is it that you would want our home, what do you want the temperature or the destination of our home to be set at, right? Maybe he has a goal for your home. Ask him, get on the same page with your teammate. The third one, I almost didn't phrase it this way because the way that the culture uses this phrase right now, is not very pretty. In fact, it paints us ladies as very selfish and entitled. But I'm calling it this anyway because I'm hoping that I could redeem this and we could rewrite it in our brains when we hear this phrase. Me time. Me time is the tool that I want to talk about. Me time is not something selfish. It is the essential things of self-care. These are the things that you need to do to be filled up, fueled up, and charged up for the whole day, right? You are your best tool in your toolbox. And I know you don't want to hear, you're a tool, but you are. You are the best tool that you have in your toolbox. And that's very evident when we're sick. Nothing gets done, right? When we're sick or maybe you're on bed rest or something like that, things unravel. You need to be in the best shape to be useful and effective in managing your home and raising your little ones. So there are going to be some essential things that need to come into place in order to keep you in shape as a tool. So some of those things might be things like exercise and diet, right? We can't just be feeding ourselves sugar or else we're going to crash later and we're not going to be the Mary Poppins mom that we want to be. Sleep. Sleep is actually very important that we need to have sleep so our brains can function and we can be the moms that we need to be. Water, right? We need to be drinking water. And then there are going to be some specific things that are going to be unique to just you. That these are things that, if I could just do this, I'm ready to go for the rest of the day. For me, I love my quiet time in the morning. Time that I could just focus on God and say, okay, God, this is your day. Help me to have a good attitude. Just surrendering the day to God is essential for me. Maybe for you, it's caffeine, right? Maybe you just need your coffee in the morning, and that's what's going to fuel you up so you're ready to go and deal with all the diapers, right? Whatever it is, everybody's going to have something different. The next one is very self-explanatory. I don't need to tell you what a routine is, but all the experts say, set routines. Do the same tasks in the same order so that way they just become automatic and they become efficient and you don't have to spend brain power trying to think of, what am I supposed to do next? No, you just roll from one task into the next. And if I didn't lose you on me time, I might lose you right here. Right next to routines, in big bold letters, in capital letters, underline it, put arrows to it, write down, get a morning routine. And I know I'm talking to moms, and I know some of you have had minimal sleep, but having a morning routine means that you are waking up before your household and you're getting some tasks done, okay? I am a morning person, so this is like the one area that I'm like, I got this down. The rest of the stuff I'm still working on, but I got my morning routine down. But if you're not a morning person, or if this is something that's new to you, start small, right? So what I want you to do right next to where you wrote, I'm going to get a morning routine, I want you to write down what time your little ones, on average, in general, what time do they wake up, right? Maybe that's 5 a.m., maybe that's 7, maybe that's 10. I don't know what time your little ones wake up, but write down what time they wake up. On average, my girls start waking up anywhere between 6 and 6:30. And granted, they're older, they don't need me, they're not like calling out to me, but that's what time they wake up. So then I need to figure out how many tasks do I want to get done before they wake up? And I set my alarm accordingly, right? And I am at a weird spot where I get weird sleep, so I actually set 2 alarms, right? I have my early alarm, and if I've had a rough night, I just turn that off and I sleep through it. And then I have my deadline one where I'm up by this time. So I have anywhere from 30 to 90 minutes before my kids wake up. And it's amazing what you can get done. I encourage you, if you're just starting out, put some of your me time stuff in there, right? Set your alarm 5 minutes before your baby wakes up. 5 minutes. And your me time tasks should be, I'm going to get up and go to the bathroom and start the coffee. And then I'm on for the rest of the day. If you're doing those things, it will motivate you to if I just have time to use the restroom without the little fingers coming under the door, I'm good. I'm good to go for the rest of the day. Something like that will encourage you to make that morning routine happen. There are other routines that are super helpful for you guys to have throughout the whole day, right? Like a bedtime routine. Have a bedtime routine for your kiddos and have a bedtime routine for yourself. Something that's expected to make it run smooth, to make morning time more possible. Also, leaving the house routine, packing a diaper bag routine, these are all things that if you do them consistently and in the same order, it's going to help things run more smooth. The next one is one that I'm sure you guys are already using as well, and I don't have to describe it, and it's lists. Lists. All the experts say to use lists, and in one book that I had read, they had said, our brains have a hard time not thinking about something if it's not done. It doesn't matter how important or unimportant it is. If it's not done, we just can't stop thinking about it. That's why it wakes you up at 2 a.m. But you can trick your brain, or convince your brain is I think the word he used. You can convince your brain to stop thinking about it if you write it down. Because then your brain knows it's written down, I don't have to think about it, and it will get taken care of later. So if you're starting lists, it's not lists in your head, it's lists outside your head. So digital or paper, whatever way you want to do it. And we have lists for lots of weird things at our house. We have normal lists that people have, but we have other things that we don't want to let fall through the cracks. Skills that we want our kids to know before they leave the house. We have grocery list apps. We have password apps. We have funny things our kids say. We have a list of vacations we want to take. So that way, we're making sure that we're hitting and doing all the things that we want to do when they're little. Also, lists are helpful not just to keep track of things, but it's also helpful to take a giant task that's kind of looming and daunting and to break it down into smaller, doable chunks. And that's exactly what we did when COVID hit. I was starting to do all of our housework when my kids were at school, and then COVID hit, and they're at home, and then we homeschooled, and now they're really at home. And so I had a friend encourage me to make a master list of all of the tasks and all of the cleaning things that I wanted to get done throughout the week. Even the things that I wasn't really doing regularly, she said, put those on your list, even if it's like a wish. Like, I wish this got done. She said, and then she broke it apart into doable chunks. She broke hers apart into 7 days a week. She just made 7 broad categories, so that way each task would fall under something, and they would get done on the 7 days. I didn't want to be cleaning for 7 days, so mine's 5. And then she further broke those down, and she said, how many little hands are going to help you clean? Break those days down into how many people are going to help you clean. And for me, I have 3 kids, so that's why there are 4 categories here, right? Having lists can help you guys take a giant task like scouring your whole home and break it down into doable chunks. So one of these roles takes anywhere from like 15 to 20 minutes, really, maybe 30 for some. So it is important for this next tool, and this next tool is child training, aka child labor. And this is super important, not just because like when your child is trained and they can help you, then guess what? They can help you, and you have a helper that's capable of doing some of your chores for you. That's not only that, but it is important that your kids are learning these tasks because they're not going to be in your home forever, and it is going to go by really fast. And it's not like you can just take them, oh, you're going to leave the house in 1 year, so we need to train you to do all these things in 1 year. If you are working at it as they're growing up and as their skills improve, so you're letting them have more responsibility, that's going to make it much smoother sailing in the long run. And Karen Chen brought up last week, she said, having this family team, if you have this team and these kids are feeling like they're contributing to the team and they have their own specific role and they have this sense of belonging, having chores, that can do that, right? Because then these kids think, I'm a helpful member of this team. I'm contributing to this team. And there's this sense of ownership and there's this sense of belonging in that. And if you start young enough, they're not going to fight you, right? You see your little kids when you're like cleaning and dusting and they want to walk around and clean and dust with you. Or you see them like, they want to help you cook. They want to help you do all these things. They're like imitating everything you do. That is the best time to go ahead and grab them. And you might be looking at this list and you might be thinking, yeah, her kids are older. They can sit there and do that. I have a newborn. My newborn cannot go and clean the mirrors in all the bathrooms, right? They can't. But you can find ways to modify that. Bring them along in your tasks, right? The next one that I have for you guys is a toy system. This is a fun one to get creative. And this is definitely one that is, if it goes unchecked, it will just take over your entire house. It's like its own monster, right? Like it just, no matter how much you try to contain this chaos, it's not going to be contained unless there's something in place to keep it there. So I'm going to offer you 2 ideas. There are millions of ideas out there. This is one of the fun ones that I think has so many things to offer. My 2 ideas that I started with, the first one was just a giant toy box. When I played with my little girl, it was just me and her, and it was easy peasy. I would find the little toy, we would bring it out, and then when she was old enough, she would help me clean it away, and it was easy because it was one giant toy box. Then add my second daughter, my feisty daughter, add her into the mix, and now they're playing together by themselves. Cleanup was still a breeze, right? Everything's just getting tossed into one thing. but they were frustrated when they wanted to go play with that toy and all the little pieces. They had to go search in the endless abyss of their toys to try to find that one specific thing. And there were tears and frustration, and playtime shouldn't be tears and frustration. So I pulled out a handy tool that I had grown up with when I was in high school. I worked at an after-school daycare program, and this is how they organize it. So this is not my genius coming out. This is me copying other people. She had measured all the shelves, and she went out and got those clear Sterilite boxes so you could see through the box into what was inside there. And then each toy group or type of toy went into a box. On the outside of the box, she printed off labels, and she clear taped them onto the outside of the box. So kids knew when it was time to clean up where things went, and there was no excuse for things not to be done and put away correctly, and there was no excuse for a kid to be like, I don't know where it goes. Well, look at the box. For me, my kids couldn't read, so I even did a little icon on the box. So it was like Barbies, and there was a little picture of a Barbie. When I played with them, and we set this up, I played with them, and I said, one box at a time. Pull out one box at a time. That way, when you want to clean up and move to something else, okay, put it away. Then get the other box. Don't just take out box after box after box, because then it's overwhelming. That was something that, as a kid, I wasn't trained that, and so it was overwhelming. So I wanted to make sure my kids were trained, and they knew how to clean up their toys, and they knew to do it as they went along, right? The next tool that I want to give to you guys, this one was mentioned at NAVMO many years ago, and I kind of picture it as like the little Jiminy Cricket that's sitting on my shoulder that's kind of scolding me when I don't obey this one. But it's called, don't put it down, put it away. Don't put it down, put it away. And this was super helpful for me because I would be cleaning up after a task, and it was so tempting just to set the mess down somewhere else, and I'll get to it later. I just need to clear off the table. I'll get to this spot later. No, it's going to take 2 extra minutes to put things back where they belong instead of just setting them down to get to them later. And then your brain is happy because you've checked it off your list, and it doesn't have to wake you up at 2 a.m. The next one is a calendar or a command center. Have somewhere in your home where there is a calendar to keep track of schedules, right? Because now you don't just have your schedule or yours and your husband's. Now you're adding little kids into your schedule, and their schedules get complicated really fast. So have somewhere where all these things are written down. We kind of do a combination of both, but I love having a physical calendar somewhere in my house because when your kids come up to you and say, when is it the birthday party? You can bring them over, count the days to the birthday party, or you say, oh, we have Awanas on this night, and then we have NAVMO, and then birthday party day. It helps them grasp this abstract concept of time and days and even scheduling, right? If your kid says, oh, can we go to the park? Let's go check our calendar. Oh, it says that we have to go to the dentist this afternoon. That means we can't be at 2 places at once. We need to do the dentist, right? It lets them see that you're not just making these choices, you're scheduling and purposing the choices that you make for that day. The next two I've combined together, and these are new tools to me because I started using them or being more intentional to use them when I started homeschooling, and they're anchors and stacking. Anchors means that you're going to take a new task and you're going to anchor it to an anchor that's already in your schedule, right? So you have some permanent things that are already in your schedule, like pick up and drop off if you have public school kids, right? Those times aren't going to wiggle. Those are things that have to get done every single day. If you work, that's an anchor dropped right into your schedule. That is a non-wiggly thing. It's right there and it can't move. If you're starting a new habit or if you want to make a new habit, tie it to an anchor, right? For us, I was so nervous at home with homeschooling that group reading was just going to get swept aside because it wasn't as high of a priority as some of the other things that we wanted to get done. And so I made sure if it was lunchtime, we were either doing group reading right before or right after, right? So if lunchtime was there, group reading was looming somewhere close by, whether we wanted it to or not. Next, stacking is very similar. And it's kind of when you take 2 tasks and you could do them at the same time, right? Maybe this is you're folding laundry and you're listening to the Audible book that you really wanted to learn about raising teenagers or raising toddlers, right? Or for me, I use stacking with exercise. I don't like to exercise, but I'm going to reward myself. I'm going to say, I will only watch this addicting TV show while I'm on the elliptical, and that's it. It doesn't matter if I'm like, oh, it's a cliffhanger, but what happens? Okay, then you got to go longer. Sorry. Or you got to wait for tomorrow. So anchors and stacking, those are super helpful, especially when you're starting out and you're just trying to start a new habit. The last one that I have for you ladies this morning is set alarms. Set alarms for everything. Set an alarm for the morning routine that you're going to try, whether that's a 5-minute before your kids wake up or 90 minutes before your kids wake up. Set that morning alarm. Set alarms for if you know you have to leave the house, right? School drop-off, school pickup. That's important. I always did that because there was always the early out days or the late start days, and it just got confusing. So I set alarms so I would not miss it. Set alarms for reminders, right? You guys can all jump on your phones right now, set that alarm for waking up a little bit early this Saturday to sign up for Christmas coffee. That's a great thing to set an alarm for. That way when it goes off, you're like, why is this? Oh, Christmas coffee. And you could actually make the deadlines that you're supposed to make. Set an alarm, maybe if you know your husband gets off at 6, maybe you set an alarm for like 6:30, or if he gets home at 6, set an alarm for 6:30, and when it goes off, you're gonna be reminded saying, oh yeah, I was gonna ask you, hey, hubby, if I could do one thing to make our house more happy every single day, what would that be? Set an alarm for that, so that way you guys remember to go home and ask them, right? Setting alarms can help us free up that brain power, right? So, back to our definition. Productivity is being intentional to make progress to develop the set of tools used to skillfully manage what I've been given. And the only part of this definition that I really haven't touched is that last phrase, what I've been given. Sometimes we look at parenting or motherhood as a chore and a task and a burden, but really, it is such a blessing that we've been given, right? So I want you guys, as you guys are talking about the different things that we discussed this morning, as you're talking about the steps that work for you, or maybe steps that you need to make better progress or be intentional about, as you talk about the tools that work for you, or maybe the tools that you need to implement, I want you guys to be encouraging each other and remember the blessing that comes with being a mom, right? So, hope you guys have a good discussion. Thank you guys so much. You guys are awesome.